Welcome, everybody. This is the Loyal Homes Podcast. I'm Chris Fenton. I'm here with Vittoria Solda,
Hi, everyone.
and we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about what it's actually like to be a realtor. So many people ask us questions about what it's like to do our job. So we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of between two realtors, about what it's like when no one's looking, I guess. So we're going to do.
Yeah. So when someone hears the word realtor, what do you think they picture and how different is it from the real job, Chris?
When they hear the word realtor,
Yeah.
I think it depends on if it's a person thinking about becoming a realtor or a client. I think people that are thinking about becoming a realtor, we interview them all the time. And I think they think it's about driving your car to houses, showing houses, all the stuff they see on these TV shows. And it isn't. And then I think for clients, I think they think that the job is quite simple, that we put up a for sale sign, some photography, put up on the internet, and kind of wait around for the phone to ring. But nothing could be further from the truth. Most of our time is spent doing none of those things, right?
That's right. Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest thing you spend your time doing as a real estate advisor?
I would say I probably spend most of the time with doing lots of research and looking at properties and getting as much information that I can and just really staying ahead of the real estate market. So,
Preparing, right?
yeah, absolutely.
That's why it looks easy on TV, is because they did all the work to prepare to get ready to be able to go to that showing and say all the right things,
Right.
market that house, and actually get people to show up for a showing. I think the biggest thing was we have our marketing lead. She came here. She sold many houses in the past as a consumer. And she came here and she said, man, I thought real estate was like this way. And there's so much more that goes in behind the scenes that people never know. And so we'll pull the curtain back a little bit. So what's something clients often don't realize happens before a home is ever listed?
Clients don't realize kind of how much we put into getting to their price point and preparing their home for sale. So it's definitely a lot of work into before you see it on the MLS listed. Sometimes it's months and months preparation. And so it just depending on that house. But yeah, lots of times we are talking to clients a year, 2 years before they ever even list their home.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you go price a house and, if you haven't set expectations ahead of time, you get there and they're like, so what do you think it's worth? And it doesn't work that way. We don't just know the price of your house and pull it out of thin air, or at least a professional realtor shouldn't. There's a whole bunch of research that goes into that. We come and see your house and then we go away and we're combing through all the comparable sales and we're really looking at the differences in heating and windows and look, like, so many things come into it. We spend, I don't know, an hour or two going through data before we come up with an opinion of value, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Victoria, when you're taking on a listing, how much work happens before the photographer ever shows up?
Yeah, so just like Chris, just thinking like when we show up to the home before the photographer shows up, there is, we are kind of opening windows, removing items, trying to make the home really light and bright and photo worthy. And so we also we're taking our Matterport. For people that don't know what our Matterport is, it's our virtual tour camera that we own. And it allows us to laser measure every room of the home and also create that virtual tour for potential clients to kind of walk through and see virtually. And then we're also, creating video content. So lots of times we were doing 2 or 3 or 4 videos there, different social media videos, and just really doing a lot. And then the photographer comes and then they work their magic.
Yeah, I mean, let's just take the video itself. So you see these videos on Instagram and they look easy, but what goes into that? Well, what goes into that is, first of all, the real estate advisor who's listing the property, at least with Loyal Homes, when you list with us, the real estate advisor is creating detailed notes. So we get like 4 pages of notes about the property. Then we do an interview with the homeowners to get to learn what it's like to actually live in the house. Where does the sun rise? Where does the sun set? How does the air flow through the house? The things that you would know unless you actually live there. And then that's all put together to create a video script or a video play by play. And all of that is prepared before the video videographer shows up and starts hitting record.
Yeah, there is a lot of like small details to get to the bigger picture for sure. Right. So, and then also, trying to see what captures people too in different media videos and coming up with different ideas. So it's, yeah, very interesting. Chris, what do you think separates a professional realtor from someone who just puts a home on the MLS system?
Well, I think we started, peeling back that onion.
Yeah.
We can do, from a marketing perspective, a professional realtor, we have to figure out who the target market is for this property. Who is this home going to speak to? Like, who's going to buy this? Is it young retired people? Is it older retired people? Is it families? Like, we have to figure out who this is going to appeal to, and then figure out how we're going to tell that story in multimedia in order to really grab those people's attention online. Because our first job is to grab their attention and stop them from scrolling. And then our second job is to make sure that when they walk through the door for a showing, it matches close to what they see online.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many details that go into that. The order of the photos, the way the write-up supports those photos, all of that. And I think that care for detail is what separates a professional realtor.
What do you think the little details in marketing a home the most sellers would never think about? Kind of we touched base about a few of them, but some other ones.
Light, like the way that the sun comes into photos, the time of day that we shoot photos. Another one would be probably the way the written description is written. You see in real estate a lot of these cliche words: fixer upper, downsizer. We really want to tell the story to that target market without actually coming out and saying it, because for a couple of reasons. One is it's too on the nose, and two is you don't want to pigeonhole a house because, I live in a retirement house and I have a young family, so it doesn't necessarily mean that's that target market. So those are some little details that sellers don't think about.
I think the photo layout, the way we organize the photos in the listing to capture the buyer's attention, and not too many photos. Like a lot of clients think having more photos is better, but that's not the case in marketing. It's you can get lost in the photos. And so I think that's kind of a really special thing that we do too, as well as just organizing those photos to grab with enough photos to grab the buyer's attention, right? What the important features are. So
I think because I'm that sort of type A, short attention span, very impatient person, I'm never going to read a whole write-up on a house. I'm never going to scroll through every photo on a house unless I'm really interested. So we've always designed everything for that short attention span, and I think it serves us really, really well. When I'm pricing a house and I get to a comparable listing and I'm looking through the photos and I have to hit next 20 times
yeah.
to get from the outside to the inside, that drives me crazy. So
Yeah.
we teach our marketing people to identify the 2 or 3 things that make the home special and show those in the first 3 photos, because we may never get past those first 3 photos if we don't grab their attention.
That's totally true.
So let's shift gears. What about pricing? What does a great pricing conversation actually look like behind the scenes?
So, meeting with the seller at Will Homes, what we do is we meet with the seller, we go through their home, we get to know kind of what their plan is, suggesting different ideas for them, and then we invite them in to come in and go over marketing and pricing strategy. And we really show them, not just tell them, but we show them how we got to their pricing. We make them understand how we got there, and also just like explaining how the current market is, right? Because we live in this real estate world, so we're kind of up to date on everything. So we try and teach everyone like all kind of what we see behind the scenes, right? And really show them and spend the time with them.
100%. The honest truth is the main job of a listing agent is to help somebody come to terms with the actual reality of their house. And that's a delicate thing because everybody has different personality types. Everybody has different levels of how entrenched they are into what they believe their house is worth. And quite frankly, most of the time we think as humans that our house is worth more than it is. And so it's really important to take the time to do exactly what you just said, which is show people, help them get to where they need to be to make the best decision for themselves. And then for us to respect that it's their decision.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, our goal is to help them get the most amount of money, but get them into a range that attracts the most buyers. So they're just not sitting on the market with no activity, right? So, and it's their decision ultimately what they're going to price their home for. We're just offering their expertise to be able to show them what we see. And quite often people are surprised kind of either way what the market is doing, because quite often you see a home that's listed for such and such amount, and maybe it's on the market for 2 years, but you just see that your neighbor's house is listed, but it's not selling. So there's a lot of eye-opening things that happen when we meet with the sellers. How do you balance being optimistic with being honest when advising a seller?
When pricing a home, okay. That's a great question because we don't actually know for sure what a house is going to sell for. We're giving our professional opinion of value. And we have to use data to be as accurate as possible. But we also do have to be optimistic, because who wants to hire a real estate advisor that's not optimistic? So how do you balance that? I think you balance it with actual facts. You really got to spend the time to look through the comparable sales, use your insights and intuition to position it where it will stand out from all the other ones that are on the market. So the way we do that is we look at things that have sold. And then once we have an idea of the price, we then look at active listings, then only then look at active listings and say, there's nothing actually at that price point right now that's quite like this. So maybe we could bump that price up $5,000 or $10,000 and get it. What do you think?
I think that there's something kind of when I go into homes, there's always something positive I can find about a home. It just different price points and things like that. So I can really say like, the important things that I think are going to help sell that home. So, I do sit there and tend to point out the really positive things about their home and that there's a buyer for every home.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
true. And there's a marker that resonates with me too.
What's one part of the selling process that looks simple from the outside but is really very technical?
I'm going to take this in a weird direction and I'm going to say negotiate. I think that somebody who's skilled at negotiation, I know you've done hundreds and hundreds of negotiations. I've done hundreds and hundreds of negotiation. When you watch someone who's skilled in negotiation, it looks pretty straightforward. They start low, we counter offer, back and forth, and then we meet in the middle. But there's some real, and maybe not technical, but there's some real psychology around how to deal with that, because a good negotiation is where everybody walks away happy, or maybe everybody walks away slightly unhappy. And I think that's the skill that where we can most affect our client's outcome is probably not in marketing, but at the negotiating table.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think like just like from the technical side behind the scenes of it, we have a lot in with our loyal homes in the background that are attracting like buyers and views to our listings. And so that is something that a lot of people don't know about us. There is, a whole team that works behind the scene doing that so that we can get more attention to their listings.
Yeah. So like our buyer match program, which is
Right.
totally unique, and very technical. Basically what happens is when the average real estate agent puts a listing online, it's an advertising, they're pushing it out to the world, and then they're hoping for the phone to ring or an email to come in. What we've done is we've built a province-wide website that's generating a ton of traffic and a ton of actual people that have signed up to use it. And when we list a property, we can use the code of that website to go out and go through all the profiles of people that are searching for real estate and find matches for people that are actually looking at that type of house, that many bedrooms, that price range, that location. And now we can actually start conversations with them about a listing as opposed to waiting for the phone to ring. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome part of us.
On the buying side, what does a realtor do before a client ever writes an offer?
So it actually starts with a buyer's consultation. So we actually sit down and we explain the whole buyer's process to the client. And we really get to know them and understand what their needs are and what they're trying to look for to match everything kind of that's out there. And then we go out and we start our market education. We pick, 3, 4, 5 houses for them to look at to really see kind of what they like and don't like and areas and, what houses are well priced and all of that. So that's kind of our initially start up there that we start doing before we get into offers. Okay. How much of the job is really about real estate knowledge versus reading people and understanding their emotions?
I think the truth is the majority of the job is about people. I always tell that to people when they come in and they're looking for a job as a real estate advisor. I'll ask them what brought them to real estate, and they'll inevitably always, I love houses. I've always loved houses. I think real estate sales is really about houses. It's about people. That's what we're doing, is we're helping people achieve their goals. And we can't help them achieve their goals unless we truly understand what's motivating them. And then everyone's different, right? There's all these different personalities in the world, and giving people what they need and meeting them where they are is 90% of this business.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely matching what they need to the houses, right? And knowing if it's a good decision for them or not, and really having those conversations, right?
So let me ask you, what's the emotional weight involved with helping somebody through a major life transition?
So it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavyweight. I do try and put myself in their shoes and really understand them quite a bit. Somebody might think something's a big deal or not a big deal, but you need to figure out what your client thinks is a big deal, right? And support them through that and be there. So, yeah, we're in it with you. Like we are there to help you through this whole process.
And big life transitions, one of the downsizing is leaving that family home that you've been in for a
Mhm.
long time. Recently, I've been helping a lot of people move into these apartments where their cleaning and their meals are all taken care of. So it's like this next stage of their life. And that's a very emotional thing for people. You become more than just a real estate advisor. You become a person that's helping them through this from a human perspective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Some of the biggest decisions you make in your life is through your next, real estate purchase or sit, right? So when you get into a situation when you're working with a client that's kind of making decisions on an emotional level, right? How do you help them through not making emotional decisions, like to keep them grounded?
Yeah, I probably do it differently than most.
Yeah.
I always just tell people my job in this group is to help you take emotion out of it. My job is to be unemotional and help give you the facts and give you clear guidance. And then you get to make all the decisions. And I want my clients to understand that I'm just giving advice. You are in the driver's seat because people need that emotionally. They need to know that they're not going to have to do anything that they don't want to do or make a mistake, but that we're in their corner as advisors.
Hmm. It's often really understanding what their emotions are and what their concerns are, not assuming. So just kind of getting down to the detail and what their worries are. Like, what are they losing sleep over? What can we help with, like on a, even like a factual basis to like show them scenarios and things like that to help them through it. It's easier to do when you see people visibly showing their emotions, but the ones that are stressed out and are trying to mask that a little bit, it's a little harder to see, right? Just trying to help them with that because, again, we live this real estate world and we see all sorts of things, and we might be able to, offer advice in those areas, right?
I run a role play with all the advisors at Loyal Homes twice a week. So we all get in a room, a bunch of people on Zoom, but we get into a room and we practice talking to people. And the main skill that we're practicing people is asking questions to understand what's really going on. We call it peeling back the onion. So what is coming up for this person? How can we understand it? What's the next question we can ask to understand it more deeply? Because I truly believe that if you don't understand what's really going on, and many times upset person doesn't understand what's really going on. But if you
Hmm.
don't understand and you can't give advice that's actually be helpful, you're going to give advice that isn't helpful. So we practice it twice a week.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing to do just to get, people used to asking the right questions. Cause again, like assuming is a lot of what people do. And they're a lot of the time they aren't assuming right. Okay. So what does a negotiation actually look like when it's done well, when you're, dealing with emotions and somebody that's stressed out?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to give your client context, right? So when a seller gets a counter offer and it's not what they were hoping for, it's pretty common for that feeling to come up of being upset and not wanting to deal with this and just letting them know this is normal. This is what happens in every negotiation. I've done 3 of them this week and this is a normal step. So our job is to try to take the emotion out of it. I'm going to guide you. We're going to work to the end that we have in mind and let them know that, and this is strange and surprising, but let them know that they don't have to accept anything just because somebody makes a low offer. Them countering it and dignifying that offer. We're just seeing if we can get there.
And Chris, how many times do you see it where you have a low offer and the buyer comes up substantially on the seller side, right? So the seller is kind of, a little bit offended by the offer, and, we make our next move with our counter there, and they come up quite a bit depending on kind of our move there, right? So it's like they are trying to get the best deal that they can, and they're looking at it from their point of view, and the seller's like offended because it's like such a low offer. But sometimes we do get them together, right? It is one of the biggest challenges, that trying to have the seller not offended with a low offer, right? So
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, right? Most of the time,
yes,
low
yep.
offers come up if you negotiate properly and
Hmm.
you deal with it in a way that gives them space to come up. So, Vittoria, what are some problems that realtors solve for clients that the clients may never even hear about?
Well, I think it's a lot of the behind the scenes talking with the other agents, trying to qualify the client on the other side, just seeing kind of a little bit about their story, having some discussions there. Like lots of times we have places that might be a house that might be in like poor condition, right? And just making sure that the buyer's agent has told the buyer that, and kind of do they have the means to fix it up, and kind of details like that. So there's a lot that happens with conversations back and forth when we're presenting offers, and going through there before we even talk to the seller. We do really try and reduce the stress of non-needed conversation. Obviously, if anything's prudent that we tell the seller, we do, but we are trying to make it go through a lot more smoothly. And then on the buyer side, it's, when we're showing up to a possession date, it's often we are showing up to messy homes, and we're trying to navigate a lot of that and get cleaners there, and do things like that before sometimes the buyers has no idea that if we have the time frame to do so, right? So, and that's in an ideal world, that would be the best, that they have no idea of the situation they showed up with, right?
They come to a clean house and
Yeah.
clean when you got
Yeah,
there?
that's right. I've got cleaning stuff in the back of my truck, saying I don't do it often. So yeah. But yeah, that's things that people just don't think of, right?
So, what's the hardest part of the job that people don't see? The
Okay.
hardest part?
So I love my job. 90% of the time, I absolutely do. I love the people. I love all the relationships and everything that I get to do and help people in the process of their next journey. But the hardest part is just always being available, always needing to be available. And then just the hours. Like some days we have just long, long hours that nobody has any ideas that we do. We're dealing with multiple clients and offers and certain things like that. So there's some days that, we don't get to spend time with our family because we're in the heat of the market, right? And it's the inconsistency of the ups and downs, right?
For distinctly being an anniversary weekend with my wife and standing in the parking lot dealing with something that was going sideways in a negotiation. So I can relate to that.
Yeah,
Many examples, and every
right.
realtor has these examples.
They do. Yeah.
But those long days, how many times do you wake up in the morning and you have a 14-hour day jam
Yeah.
packed and you're like, nothing can go wrong today. And then you look yourself in the mirror and like, you got this, take a deep breath and
And
conquer the world.
and also knowing like every person that you're in front of and every client you have, not burdening them with that, like letting them know like they are important. This is a huge transaction in their life. And so, it's masking all of that and balancing it too, right? So,
Yeah,
mhm.
totally. What does being detail oriented really mean in a real estate transaction?
It's keeping the client informed along the whole process, being ahead of them before they ask you the questions. So again, if it's a seller, we're starting with our listing presentation and kind of going through all of that. And then if it's a buyer, we're starting with our buyer's consultation. So we're really working into all the details, but not having them to remember all of that at that point because we are reminding them everything going forward. And then we also have our whole administration staff that helps follow up with all the details, like just reiterating everything that we're saying and doing every step of the way.
Yeah, I think stress comes, one of the major sources in stress for humans is when the world doesn't match up what you think should be happening.
Hmm.
And if we're not setting expectations for our client every step of the way so that they have a clear expectation of what's going to happen next, they're left to imagine what should be happening and the world won't ever match that. So I think what you said, keeping
Hmm.
people informed is absolutely key and a huge detail.
How has the job changed from simply finding a home or listing a home?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this since 2003. So 2003, the internet we were using newspapers. So I mean, it's changed a lot in that way. But really what's changed is we were taught to put ads out there and wait for the phone to ring and then talk to people. And it was really as simple as that. And the world is different now. We are inundated with information and images and brands, social media scrolling, everything. So there's just way more information for the human mind to filter. And we have to help our clients stand out in that. And so there's just a lot more detail and a lot more tricks of the trade in order to be able to do that. The job is 10 times more complicated than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, online, just everything being online. Buyers coming from all over Canada to move here, like the majority of them. And so it's a lot of, being everywhere online.
Well, and then what about digital signatures? I mean, they're
Right.
really great. But now we're sitting in front of our client a lot less than we used to.
Yeah.
More is done on the phone. And when it's done on the phone, there's no body language to help with that communication. And I think it's definitely made us more efficient, but I think it's also, if you're not careful, it can create more stress.
Yeah, you could definitely, how many people don't read those contracts, right? And just e-sign them. And so really taking that time to explain them to them on the phone before they're doing that. So, yeah.
Totally.
After everything you've seen, what do you wish that the clients understood about what a realtor does?
Care. I wish people really understood how much we care.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish that they realized, how much we do care. It's not as glamorous as it looks. We're not just going into all these beautiful houses and, everything's not going super easy all the time either, right? So there's a lot of hard work and dedication and emotions that goes through working with a client, right? So I
I think that's
think,
what I love about Loyal Homes and our brokerage, our group of people is that we're in it together. So it is difficult emotionally and grueling. It's a marathon being a real estate advisor for a year. It's a grind for being one for 10 years, but we have each other to work through problems with, lean on when things are rough. And that makes us better for our clients because, like, as you said earlier, the clients never need to see any of that.
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for tuning into this podcast.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe if you want to see future podcasts, and we'll be coming back every 2 weeks with a new episode.
Yeah. See you guys next time.